any institution. In a general analysis, this is what we find in today's world. So we have a tendency to demonize things that ought to be not demonized, and the things that should be taken in its with its face value, and the things which are actually very useful, helpful, which can build our entire personality, we tend to make demons out of them. Not only that, there is another part of it that is playing the victim card so very easily. So now, in the past 4 days, you all would have heard some very great speakers who are from the core area of yoga philosophy. They would have spoken about yoga and its philosophy, that the depth, the width of yoga philosophy, and also I'm not going to make a fool of myself by speaking about all those things. Anyway, the one thing that when we see yoga philosophy is, or not just yoga philosophy, any philosophy that has come out from this great land, Bharatavarsam, we always find that why did our sages, our ancestors, the so-called scholars, did they not have any other better ideas to think upon? Why did they not think upon taking an entire human race to Mars, as some gentleman is currently doing in this world today? Why focus on things that are so minute, that may not even be visible or perceivable for most of the people? Why waste time on all those things? When we look at the entire philosophical systems that we have in our country, most of them, they focus on only one thing, that is mind, chittam. It all comes down to that. And there is a famous saying in which they say that if you do not get the purity of mind, if all the actions are not leading towards purification of your mind, then whatever you have studied, whatever you are doing, is of no worth, is of no value. Why focus on mind, which is not even visible, which cannot even be perceived so easily by everybody? Whereas Mars can be easily perceived. You can use a telescope, you can see things. You have to believe what you see. You cannot see, you cannot believe something that you don't see. You cannot see mind. So then why do we have to believe that? And apart from that, we have demonized the mind. We have heard so many lectures, so many discourses, so many things being said about mind, that mind is the culprit here. Mind is the main culprit here, which actually puts us in so much of trouble. Why worry about such a thing? This is one part of the argument that is going on that may go on in today's world. The other part of the argument is playing the victim card on behalf of mind. Why should mind be demonized like this? Mind has been subjected to such accusations by the so-called Indian scholars, which is not right. There may be some kind of narrative like this in the coming days. And if it comes out like this, it's not to be surprised or anything, because we can actually sense that this kind of victim card could be played against mind so that it can be changed according to their narrative. Be whatever it may. Now, the question in front of is, why so much of focus in our philosophies is put on mind? Such a tiny item. We don't even know how it looks, because it doesn't have any shape or anything. We can see a heart, we can see a brain, but not mind. Why? Why so much of focus, so much of pressure for one tiny thing? But that tiny thing holds the key. Now, in Nyaya Shastra, Nyaya philosophy, they define human body in a very peculiar way. Although some of the Nyaya texts, they prefer to define human body as bhogayatanam shariram, that is, a body is defined as something that is made to enjoy both the pleasures and pains of this world, only made up for that. And there is one more definition found in Prachina Nyaya, where they define human body as yoga bhogayatanam shariram. A human body is defined as such a tool or such a medium that can be used for both yoga and bhoga. There has always been this talk of internal and external things, outer real and inner real in Indian Shastras. This is the uniqueness of Indian philosophies that we can never find in any other part of the world or in any other narrative, because they don't have that vision. Now, this is where the role of mind becomes so vital, so important, because it is the mind that holds the key to both the outer world as well as the inner world. And if the key is lost, we are absolutely gone. We are wanderers. Hence, it's always the focus is paid much on mind because it holds the key for yoga and bhoga both. So that's why the famous saying, Mana eva manushyanam karanam bandha mokshayo. This is a very famous saying which so many of you may have come across. They say that mind is the sole reason for both bandhana and as well as liberation. Bandhana, as in the sense that if we are bound to the circle of birth and death, life after death, death after life, it goes on like a cycle. So what causes all these things? It is karma, but what promotes or what provokes karma is mind. Hence, mind is the key item here. And also, moksha yoga. Even for moksha, mind is the key. The famous Kathopanishad, it says that paranchi khani vyatranat swayambhu. When human beings were made, so when we look at our own body, all our sense organs, they point towards the outer world. None of the sense organs point inwards. That is the beauty of human body. It is although as if it is made to experience the outer world, but that is just a challenge, because we are supposed to know that this is not the only world that we are going to live in. There is an entire world within ourselves that is absolutely unexplored, just like the Mars that has never been explored. So why spend so much of money, so much of resources on such a planet when you can actually invest a few minutes a day, a few hours a day for the whole of your life, and you can realize you can unlock the potential that we have. We can unlock the potential that we have hidden within ourselves. That is the beauty of Indian philosophy. We knew, our sages, our ancestors, they knew where to look. The answers for all the problems in this world lies within us. So that is the basic thing. That is what is missing in today's narrative. Because when we talk about yoga, before we begin to talk about yoga, we must never forget its bigger brother. Its big brother, that is Sankhya. And Sankhya philosophy, they are the original thinkers of Indian philosophical systems. And the entire Sankhya narrative begins with a simple question: do you have a problem in life? Who on this earth does not have a problem? And they classify, they categorize the problems into three: Adhyatmika, Adhitaivika, and Adhibhautika. They call it as Tapatraya or Dukhatraya. We are surrounded by dukkha. So how to get over this? Or there may be some people who wish to remain in dukkha forever. They don't want to get rid of dukkha. I don't think there is anybody who does not want to get rid of dukkha. So there is this basic urge within every human being that we want to get rid of all the dukkha, all the pain, the misery that we are surrounded with. So where do we have to look for reasons? Where do we have to look for answers? From where shall we begin? We shall begin with the mind, because that is the key. So that's why they said that bandhaya vishayasaktam, when mind gets attached with the world, the outer world, it leads us to bandhana. It leads us to the cycle of life and death. Muktya nirvishayam smritam. All we have to do is we just have to cut the connection between mind and the outer objects. That's all. If we eliminate this relationship between mind and the objects, all of a sudden mind becomes nirvishayam. And what happens when mind becomes nirvishayam? Yato nirvishayasyasya manaso muktirishyate. Ato nirvishayam nityam manahkaryam mumukshuna. Those who seek liberation, mumukshu is a beautiful word in Sanskrit language, which says that mokshasya ichha yasyasti saha mumukshu. The one who has the burning desire to get liberated himself, he is called as mumukshu. And what is the first job of a mumukshu? The first job of a mumukshu is nirvishayam manahkaryam. He must make his mind free of all the other attachments or other assignments that we have assigned to it. So many things. Okay, fine. I am willing to do this. I'm ready to turn my mind in towards my inner realm and realize or embark upon a beautiful journey. Then how am I going to achieve that? That's where yoga comes in. That they said that muktir yogat, sankhyan nasti param jnanam. They said that there is no knowledge greater than sankhya and no power, no potential greater than yoga. That's why this is a brutal combination, one of the most powerful combination of philosophies that we will ever see in this world, Sankhya and Yoga. One gives us the knowledge, the greatest knowledge, the treasure of all knowledge lies in Sankhya. And Yoga has all the power in it, every single thing. If we can control our mind, we can control the entire universe. Forget about going to Mars and having our own colony. We can conquer this entire world if we can embark on the journey of conquering our mind. Okay, when I say conquering our mind, again, as I said in the beginning, it makes mind look like a demon. It makes our own mind look like a villain to us. It is not. So let us just say that all we have to do is work very carefully with mind. How are we going to do that? Yoga is going to help us. Muktir yoga, and how yoga is going to help this one. They said that yoga samyak jnanat mahiyat. Yoga through proper jnana. Jnana devatu kaivalyam, that is the siddhanta, that is the final word of all the philosophies. There may be plenty of other people saying and shouting and putting forth their own perceptions, but this is the truth. This is the only truth, that jnana devatu kaivalyam, only jnana, only true knowledge of oneself can lead us to moksha, nothing else. So this is what the whole life is all about. And that's what Adi Shankara said in his Viveka Chudamani when he quoted that, when he said that Jantunam Narajanma Durlabham. And then at the end he said that Muktirno Shatakoti Janmasu Ityadi Ityadi. So that's why moksha or liberation or mukti, that is what we all seek, secretly, knowingly or unknowingly. That is the only thing that is desirable in this entire world. None of the other things in this world is desirable. The only thing desirable for human beings is liberation, to get rid of this, all the bandhanas, all the attachments that we have, that we are caught in. Anyway, now comes the most important thing, that which put India on the global map. So say some people, yoga. Who has not heard about yoga? Everybody has heard about yoga. It has been nurtured, manufactured, packaged, propounded, produced, reproduced, promoted, marketed throughout the globe. And yet, nobody seems to have a perfect grasp on its meaning, on its etymology, or on its depth, what yoga truly is. There are plenty of definitions told in Bhagavad Gita itself. You can find a minimum of 3 definitions for yoga in Bhagavad Gita itself. And when you go into yoga philosophy, they say that samadhi is also yoga. And samprajnata samadhi is there, asamprajnata samadhi is there, even that is yoga. The means is also yoga. The destiny is also yoga. It is so confusing. Then how do we define yoga? There are plenty of definitions. We may not waste our time on looking at the various definitions of yoga. Instead, let us just jump to the first 3 sutras of Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, where he starts off by saying, Atha Yoga Anushasana. This is the first sutra of yoga philosophy. And the second one is, because the word yoga was used in the first sutra, it begs the question that what is yoga? It's an obvious thing. That's how human minds work. So in the very next sutra, he explains what is yoga. In fact, Vedavyasa in his Bhashya explains what is yoga in the commentary of the first sutra itself. But again, for a clearer picture, Patanjali himself gives the perfect definition of yoga, called as Yogas Chittavritti Nirodha. This is where the topic, the core of today's lecture, today's talk, Chittavritti lies. What is Chitta? What is Chittavritti? And why and how are we going to gain control over Chittavrittis? That's it. And what connects yoga and Chitta? because the entire webinar is about Chitta Shuddhi, but we are talking about yoga. Is there any relationship between yoga and Chitta? Uh, we will come to Chitta Shuddhi at the last part of the talk. But is there any connection? Is there any relationship between Chitta and yoga? Of course there is. As I mentioned before, Chitta is the key that unlocks both the realms, outer and as well as inner world. Hence, yoga has a very deep connection, a very good and stable relationship with Chitta. Now, if we look back at the history of yoga, it did not begin as 3 or 4 years ago when June, some date in June, in the month of June, was declared as International Yoga Day. Yoga did not begin then. Neither did yoga begin during the 19th century or 18th century. Imam vivasvate yogam proktavan hamavyayam vivasvan manave praha manurikshvakave pravi evam parampara praptam imam rajarshayo viduhu sakalene hamata yogo lushtah parantapa. The entire history of yoga was told, the chronological order of yoga was told by Krishna himself in Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna when he said that it was him, it was Krishna who gave this yoga to Vivaswan and Vivaswan to Manu and so and so and so. And it got lost in the meanwhile. And he revived it again. And this is how it goes on. So why do we have to worry or think about yoga's history? Because we must know what we are dealing with. We are not dealing with a philosophy that started few centuries ago. We can't even begin to count. We can't even calculate the time. And that's how old yoga is. That is when yoga began. So when we are dealing with such a timeless classic such as yoga, how are we supposed to take a look at it? We need some help. We absolutely need some help. And there are plenty of people to help. And one of them is Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. And then comes Vyasa Bhashya. And then comes Adi Shankara's Vivarana on that Vyasa Bhashya. And Vachaspati Mishra's commentary on Bhashya. And also Vijnana Bhikshu's Yoga Vartika. And there are plenty of other people who have commented on Vyasa Bhashya as well as Patanjali Yoga Sutra. There is a Vritti by Bhojaraja written as well. Now, we are not going to deal in detail with about all those texts because that is not the topic of today's talk. But the greatest thing that we can learn from any of the philosophy or any Shastra, for that matter of fact, in our Indian system of knowledge is they all begin with four important aspects. And we call it as Anubandha Chatushtayam, or you can call it as objective quadruple. Without these four, you cannot even begin any Shastra. Not just any Shastra, you cannot even begin to order somebody or request somebody or ask somebody to do something, even if it is your own children. We cannot ask them if we do not mention these four items. If these four things are not told, no one is going to get interested in the task ahead of us. So at the beginning of every talk, this is the Shastra system. This is the Oriental system that has always been there. You have to mention, you must mention Anubandha Chatushtayam. Without Anubandha Chatushtayam, there is no point of talking at all. So what is the Anubandha Chatushtayam? What are these four things upon which the entire narrative is going to be built? The first one is called as Vishaya, subject. The second one is Adhikari, eligibility. Not just eligibility, the people who are eligible. And now comes the most, what should I say that? Very disturbing topic or maybe controversial. Okay, let's stick with controversial. It is not controversial. People say that many groups of people have been denied access to Veda. Yes, that is true. I am not going to say that people have been denied access to Veda. It has been denied. And it may be true. We have to discuss that in a separate talk. But why are we discussing about Vedadhikara and if somebody is eligible to chant Veda or not and all these things? Because Veda happens to be the source, the main source, the power source of all the Shastra systems, of all the philosophies. If it was not for Veda, then we would have not had any of these darshanas, any of these shastras, nothing. So it is because of Veda, because Veda exists, and because Veda exists always, Vedasya nityatvam, apaurushayatvam, etc., etc. That is why we have all these systems still in working condition. Now, there is a distinction that we need to pay attention here. The distinction is very simple. The, the access to Veda has been denied, no doubt, whereas the access to Vedartha has never been denied. And nobody can argue against it because they do not have enough uh, proof with them to say anything other than this, because Vedartha has never been denied. You know what is the first line that Vijnana Bhikshu writes in his Yoga Vartika? Atha lokanugrahaya vyasaha evam bhashyam chakara. This is the line, lokanugrahaya. And when he says lokanugrahaya, he means it includes each and every person, each and every human being, irrespective of caste, creed, race, color, anything that we can differentiate people with. So these systems, they have Vedartha in them, and this system has not been denied to anybody. So that itself answers who is Adhikari for yoga. Everybody is Adhikari. Whoever is born is eligible to liberate himself. Every human being is eligible to liberate himself. Anyway, so that deals with adhikara, and vishaya is yoga. That's done. And now, but apart from these two, there are two more things. The one is sambandha, and the other one is prayojana. Sambandha is co-relationship between adhikari and vishaya and prayojana, and so and so. And prayojanam is the purpose, the motive. Why are we doing this? And all such things. Now, there is a famous line in Mahabhashya, also written by Patanjali in Vyakarana, where he says that Siddhartham Siddha Sambandham Shrotum Shrota Pravartate. Shastratu Tena Bhaktavyaha Sambandha Saprayojana. Hence, it is mandatory for everybody to mention the relationship, the co-relationship, as well as the purpose of this venture that we are going on about. So without mentioning Sambandha and Prayojana, we cannot proceed further. So that is the golden rule of all Shastras and philosophies. So this is the objective quadruple. Now, in order to understand Prayojana, it takes quite a different approach. Yoga Sutra takes a different approach, or I should say, the Vivaranakara Adi Shankara takes a different approach in order to explain the prayojana, the motive, the purpose of yoga philosophy. It's not an easy job to do, not at all, because there are so many things to culminate. So Adi Shankara says that in Vivarana, he says that we must follow the system of medical science, and medical science has a system called as Chaturvyuha. Chaturvyuha includes roga, the disease, roga hetu, the cause of the disease, bhaishajyam, cure, and arogyam. Arogyam is good health. So this is how the entire medical science works. In the same way, Adi Shankara argues that we should see heya, that is the thing that needs to be abandoned, that needs to be left out. That is called as heya. The second one is heya hetu. Why are we abandoning it? What caused us to abandon it, or what is causing us to abandon it? We must know that. So heya hetu. The third one is hanopaya. Hanopaya is the means to get rid of whatever needs to be get rid of. There should be a proper mean. There should be a proper channel. There should be a proper tool, and that is covered under hanopaya. And hanam is the ultimate thing. And once we go through all four of these, we will be able to understand what yoga truly is, or what is the ultimate purpose of yoga. So let's begin with Heya. He said that Dukkha Prachura Samsaro Heya. Adi Shankara for you. And no one else can speak so sweetly, so subtly, and at the same time with so much of depth in its meaning. Such is the style of Adi Shankara, such a great philosopher. And for such a great philosopher, he has so sweet and so beautiful lines to speak. Anyway, so he says that Dukkha Prachura Samsaro Heya. It means that the world, which is filled with abundant pain and misery, that needs to be left, that needs to be abandoned. I know that it begs the question that we are in this world, we are a part of this world, then why should we abandon this world? Maybe this is why someone is trying to go to Mars. No, 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 no. That's not the point here. The point here is by loka, by prapancha, or by samsara, we mean, because the word is samsara, sarati iti saraha. Samyak sarayati iti samsaraha. The one which makes us travel again and again and again in a circular motion, life after death, death after life. It goes on and on and on. And we need to get rid of that because it's never ending. We are never going to stop. We have forgotten where we came from. What is our originality? What is our original form? We have forgotten that. So the sole purpose of human life is to find that purpose, find that meaning, find that motive in life, that this is what we are, this is what we truly are, and we must realize that. And for that, we need the chi, we need chitta. We need to understand what chitta is. Only then we will be able to understand its plenty of vrittis. And once we understand Chittavrittis, it is easy for us to reach Chittavritti Nirodha. And within there lies the concept of Chitta Shuddhi. Anyway, we will come to that later. Now, it is established that this world is filled with pain and misery. As I mentioned before, Dukkhatraya, that is the whole idea of Heya. Now, what causes this? Heya Hetu. Adi Shankara points out very beautifully, very subtly. He says that Drashtru Drishya Sanyoga. We believe that there is a deep connection between the seer, the one who sees, and the object that we are seeing. The object that we perceive and perceiver, we are some way, we are related. Because I am knowing that and it is being known by me. This is the sort of relationship that we have. And what causes this? Avidya nimittaha, drashtra drishya sanyoga. It's all caused because of avidya, aviveka. Okay, fine. Now, there is also one more question asked here that why do we have to know about what needs to be abandoned and what causes all these things and all? Isn't our purpose directly to get rid of the heya? So without knowing heya, can get rid of it? No, we cannot get rid of something that we do not know at all. If we do not know how chitta works, how are we supposed to gain control over it? Or how are we supposed to cleanse that? We said Chitta Shuddhi, fine, beautiful. We have to cleanse, we have to purify our mind, but we don't know what our mind is. If we do not know what our mind is, it will be something similar like you ask someone who is very new to that field or who is a novice in that field. We ask that person to wash a silver utensil, and that person does not know how to wash the silver utensil. He goes and he uses some other material to cleanse the silver item, and the silver utensil just goes in vain. That should not happen. So we must know what we are dealing with. Only then we will be able to find a cure for that or find a measure for that to get rid of that. Hence, Heya Hetu and Heya are very much necessary. And then comes Hanupaya. What are the means to get rid of that pain? Very simple. Viveka Khyati. We must know the discrimination between Purusha, that is the Parama Purusha, the true self, the true form, the original form of ourselves, and the distinction between the true self and the mind. Because the mind acts as if that is the owner of this entire body. We feel that we are in control of everything, but we are not. We feel that I am seeing, I am listening, I am talking, but it is not so. It is definitely not so. This is the mysterious part of mind. And this is where our Indian counterparts have outscored the Western counterparts. Because there is so much of work done on this in Indian philosophy that we cannot even begin to study from the beginning. That's how much literature is available related to mind and its ways of working and how to get rid of or how to get control over our mind. Now, this is Viveka Khyatihi, and that is the Hanupaya. That is the only way to attain or get rid of this word. Fine. And now, what are we going to achieve at the end? Hanam. He says that Drashtra Drishya Sanyogo Paramaha. It ends. Whatever myth that we have that I am the seer, I am the one who is seeing, and this object is being perceived by me, and so on and so on and so. That goes away. And as soon as that goes away, that is called as Kaivalyam. This is Kaivalyam. This is moksha. And Kaivalyam or Viveka Khyati, Drashtudrishya Sanyogo Paramaha, and he says that Atyantika means absolute. It goes away absolutely. It never comes back. That's what they mean. And this is called as Kaivalya, this is moksha, this is the Parama Prayojana of yoga. Now, we are embarking on this sort of a journey. We are discussing about this sort of a yoga, and the first sutra says that Atha Yoga Anushasanam. What is Anushasanam? Anushasanam means instructions. We are going to instruct on how to attain this yoga or how to utilize yoga in order to get to where we want to get ourselves. So this is how the Sambandha and Prayojana of yoga has been established. So we can simply say that yoga is an upaya. It's a means to attain Viveka Khyati. This has been said in the coming sutras as well by Patanjali, where he says that Yoganganushthanat Ashuddhikshaye Jnanadiptihi Aviveka Khyate. Up until we get that Viveka Khyati, up until we get that Viveka, that discriminating power, that Purusha is different from Chitta, they are totally two different things. Until and unless we get that, up until there will be this Ashuddhikshaya. We are unable to differentiate between Chitta and Purusha because when we say Purusha, our true self, we are unable to distinguish between them because we are covered in Ashuddhi. Ashuddhi caused because of avidya, smita, etc., etc. So when we start practicing yoga in its true sense, in its true form, then it slowly eradicates all these miseries. Ashuddhi goes away, and that itself is Chitta Shuddhi. It's not like Chitta is being purified. Chitta is always pure. Chitta is eternally pure. But there is this coverage of impurity over it, and all we need to do is we have to make sure that those impurities go away. And once we do that, we have attained Chitta Shuddhi. And once Chitta Shuddhi is there, Jnana Dipti, we will get that knowledge and all those things. Now, in this particular way, we have to make sure that we understand what yoga actually meant to Patanjali, or what yoga actually meant to Vyasa. When he started commenting on Atha Yoga Anushasanam, he says that yoga means samadhi. Yoga samadhi. These are the words of Vyasa in his Vyasa Bhashyam. He says that yoga means samadhi. There are two roots from which we can derive the word yoga in Sanskritam. One is yujiri yoge, which means that the combining of two items is also called as yoga. For example, sanyoga, viyoga, and all those things. There is one more dhatu from which we can derive yoga, that is yuj samadho. Samadhi is the meaning. What is samadhi? Avadhanam, samadhanam, pranidhanam, tathaivacha. So says Amarkosha. So there are plenty of rituals in Indian tradition, and one such tradition and one such ritual is goes by the name Punyaha Vachanam. And during Punyaha, there will be 4 priests, and the Yajamana, he gets up and he asks them, Manas Samadhi Yatam. And neither the speaker knows what he's saying, nor does these priests know what they are actually replying back. And they respond back saying that Samahita Manasasmaha. And he asks us to take our mind to the level of samadhi. Is it possible? Yes, it is possible. Because in order to perform that punyaha vachanam, one needs to attain the state of yoga. Or one needs to attain the state of samadhi. That is not happening is another issue. But this was the idea behind that ritual, why those lines are being put there, or why those words are said every day. So what is samadhi then? Samadhi means samadhanam. Okay, fine. Samadhanam we all know. So what is samadhanam then? Not the way we understand samadhanam. Chandrasekhar Bharati, the pontiff of Sringeri Shankara Matham, he has commented on Shankara's Viveka Chudamani, and he says that We see that in every home, when a child starts crying, the parents give something to make that child stop crying. And we use the word samadhana in that sense. And he says that that is not the samadhanam that Shastra is going to say, or what Shastra intends to say when it uses the word samadhanam. Samadhan means steadiness. To have that steadiness is called as samadhana. So Vyasa says that yoga means samadhi. And what kind of samadhi are we talking about? And now comes the most important part where he says that sarvabhaumaha chittasya dharmaha. Samadhi sarvabhaumaha chittasya dharmaha. He said that this samadhi, it's universal, it's ever present, and it exists everywhere. And it is a quality of mind, chittasya dharmaha. So we are again concentrating on chitta. See, this is why chitta is important. This is why I told in the beginning that chitta or manaha, it holds the key for both bandhana as well as moksha. So they said that chittasya dharma, the quality of mind, which is present everywhere, that is called as samadhi. Now, when they use the word sarvabhauma, obviously there will be a question that what are these bhumi? Avastha. Bhumi means state of mind, or avastha, or dasha, a phase, we can say, or a state. Now, there are 5 states of mind. The first one is called as kshipta, mudha. Second one is mudha. Third one is vikshipta. Fourth one is ekagra. Fifth one is niruddha. And with these 5 in mind, they said that when we attain that samadhi in all these 5, because samadhi exists in all these 5, it's not that vikshipta mind does not have samadhi. It does have samadhi. It does has that steadiness, but still it is not useful for us. Because vikshipta, we need to understand what vikshipta means first. So only then we will be able to decode what exactly samadhi is, what we are actually trying to do here. We are trying to work around the mind. We are not going to kick it out. We are not going to replace it. We are not going to bring someone else in the place of mind so that we can attain liberation. We are going to work with the devil, if we can call the mind so. We have to work with that. And how are we going to do that? By understanding it. It's always the unawareness of the thing that we are going to conquer that costs us very dearly. So if we have to conquer mind, we must know what mind truly is. So now these are the 5 chitta bhumis. They're called as kshiptam. The first one is kshiptam. It means restlessness. And why the mind becomes restless? They said that it is agitated because it is attached to so many undeserving things. The things that it should not get attached to, the mind gets attached to those things, and hence it becomes restless. So very uh, simple definition for kshiptam. It is a state of mind, isn't it? Then the second one is mudham. Mudham is nirvivekam, where there is no discrimination between right and wrong. We don't know what is right, what is wrong. We can't decide. And we use this as an excuse plenty of times, because most of the times we are like this. Infatuation. I find something very beautiful because it is I who is feeling that this is good, this is great. I must do because it is my life and my rules. That's how we tend to take our life, and that is the reason why mind plays so beautifully with us. It will keep us locked up in this circle, in the cycle of life and death, as long as we let it do. So we need to understand how the mind works. Only then we will be able to gain control over it. The third one is vikshiptam. It is just a bit different from kshiptam. Kshiptam is restlessness, whereas vikshiptam is distractedness. Mind is distracted because it wants to go into several places at the same time. That is what is called as vikshiptam. Now, up until this 3 stages, these 3 stages, we find samadhi, we find that yoga in all these 3, but they are secondary. That samadhi which is found in kshipta, mudha, and vikshipta is secondary. Even when there is restlessness in mind, even when mind is covered with infatuation, even when the mind is distracted, we can find that steadiness of mind. but we cannot harness the energy of that steadiness. And hence, we need to move on to the next Chitta Bhumi. We have to find another state of mind, and that is called as Ekagram, one pointedness. Tulya Pratyaya Pravaha, flow of the same thought, unbreakable. Unbreakable flow of the thought is called as Ekagrata. And once the mind achieves this, it will be able to reach the height of Samprajnata Samadhi. This is how Samprajnata Samadhi is achieved. There are two types of Samadhi. One is Samprajnata, another one is Asamprajnata. What happens in Samadhi is, because the mind is entirely focused on only one particular thing, it will be able to know the object as it is, unlike the other three states. When we are distracted, we will not get a clear picture of any of them. When it is infatuated, we don't know what is right or what is wrong. We cannot even perceive the thing properly during its mudha state. And when it is kshiptam, it just doesn't know what is going on. It is restless. So in all these three things, even though there is a minute amount of steadiness, even though samadhi exists, we cannot harness that energy. Hence, we need to move on to the next state where the mind becomes focused on only one point, that is ekagrata. And with this ekagrata, we will be able to reach the heights of samprajnata. And even samprajnata has got four varieties or four types of samprajnata samadhi. They are vitarkanugata, vicharanugata, anandanugata, and asmitanugata. These are all mere details. Uh, I'm just saying this out because one needs to understand, one needs to appreciate how much has been thought about mind. Just a simple mind, how much has been thought by our sages, by our Shastrakaras. We need to understand that. That's why I have just given this details. Anyway, steadiness of mind found across all its states is what Vyasa meant when he said Yoga Samadhi. Because Vyasa defined yoga as samadhi. How can he define yoga as samadhi? Because he can define yoga as samadhi because in all the states of mind, we can find this steadiness. But only in the state of ekagrata, we can harness the complete energy of mind. And because we are focusing on only one object, so we will be able to understand the object as it is, however it is. That's why it is called as samprajnata. Samyak prakrishtena jnayate iti samprajnata. We know that item, we know that object as it is and clear cut. Now, the very next question is, so we have explained samprajnata. So is samprajnata samadhi a step towards asamprajnata? There is a discussion, there is a debate about this. Only Vivaranakara says that no, it is not a step. It can be achieved. Asamprajnata samadhi can be achieved even without going through samprajnata. It's not mandatory, it's not necessary. One can have both of them. That's what some of them find. Anyway, we are nobody to judge on that because we do not have the practical knowledge to speak on that. At least I do not have the practical knowledge to speak on whether samprajnata samadhi comes after samprajnata or not. Anyway, moving on. The second sutra, which is universally heard, most famous, most heard, which comes to the core of the topic of today's talk, that is Yoga's Chittavritti Nirodha. Chitta, Vritti, Nirodha. There are three words. They are coined together. Yoga, Chitta, Vritti, Nirodha. Okay. The first thing that Vyasa does is, what is Chittam? We have been talking so much about mind, and all. We defined what is yoga. Yoga is samadhi, fine, beautiful. We said that there are 5 states of mind: Chitta, Mudha, Vikshipta, Ekagra, and Niruddha. But what is mind actually? Now he defines mind as Chittam Trigunam. It consists of 3 gunas because Prakhya Pravritti Sthitishīlatvat. Because it has Prakhya, it has Pravritti, and it has Sthiti. Because it has these 3 characteristics, we can call mind as a culmination or a mixture of 3 gunas. That is Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. When we say Prakhya, it belongs to Sattva. Prakhya means Sattva, knowledge, awareness, consciousness. These are the meanings of Prakhya. Pravritti is to work, to be active. That is the job of Rajas. And Sthiti is to remain, to stay, to be still. That is Tamas. and it is mostly out of moha and not out of that kind of samadhi. Anyway, now this chitta is defined as trigunam, consisting sattva, rajas, and tamas. And now comes the next important part, that is, what is chitta vritti? How does it remain in this world? Or how does it establish its relevance? See, any object, any item that stays in this world has to prove its relevance time and again. Every day, every single day, it has to prove its relevance. If it does not prove its relevance, then it is gone. It is useless. So how does chitta prove its relevance? Through its vrittis. So what is chitta's vrittis? Vritti is modifications. It modifies itself. It comes up with a new pose every day. It comes up with a new attire every day, every moment, every second. That's how mind remains so very agile as well as relevant in all the time. Now, this chitta is mainly made up of sattva, rajas, and tamas. But when rajas and tamas combine together predominantly, it gives rise to Aishwarya. Aishwarya here refers to power. It wants to take control of everything. It wants to think that it is the one who is in control of everything. Most of the times we have this rajas and tamas combined together, and that's why we think that we are doing everything. We are the owners of our actions, etc., and so on. And then when tamas becomes predominant, it gives rise to adharma, ajnana, anaishwarya, avairagya, etc. And when rajas becomes predominant, it gives rise to dharma, jnana, vairagya, and so on. But when both rajas and tamas are subdued, what happens then is swarupa pratishtha. This is what we want to achieve. This is where we are supposed to head towards to. So, swarupa pratishtham, that's what happens when there is only pure sattva. So this is what chitta is all about. That's why I said that chitta is basically made out of completely sattva. It is sattvamaya. But because of rajas and tamas being predominant over it, it runs havoc on sattvamaya chitta. We, we are not able to understand the true identity of chitta. Now, what does this Chitti Shakti do? It is called as Chitti Shakti, that is Chitta Shakti, that's all. Chitti Shakti is changeless. It is called as aparinami. It cannot change. It never changes. It remains as it is. Because what do we mean by change is, in a, in a particular object, there is a special quality which is pre-existing, and another quality which comes in its place, it takes up that quality's place. If this happens, it is called as change. But that is not happening in Chitta. In pure Chitta, it doesn't happen. That's why it is called as aparinami, that is changeless. Since it is changeless, it cannot move elsewhere. It cannot take the shape of any other things. That's why it is aprati sankrama. Aprati sankrama means movementless. It cannot move. It remains static. It remains at one particular place. And then it is darshita vishaya. See, this is where we need to focus, because we feel that we are knowing everything. It is being fed to mind. Buddhi, the intellect, it takes up the object's uh, shape. It becomes the object. It is called as parinamavada. In Sankhya, it is called as parinamavada. It parinamate, ghatatvena parinamate. It becomes a pot. We think that we know pot. Basically, we do not know pot. Our buddhi becomes pot. That's why we feel that we know pot. What is that is feeling? Because it is always this chitta which feels. Chitta is forced to feel. Atma buddhya sametyarthan. See, it's always the connection between Atma and Buddhi. Buddhi takes up the shape of every object that it encounters, and it reflects upon the mind. It's like projector screen, and the mind is seeing all those things, and it feels that I am doing all these things. That's why it is called as Darshita Vishaya. Darshita Vishaya is objects are presented to it, and then it is Shuddha. Chitta is basically Shuddha, it is pure. And then that's why it is Ananta, it is endless. We cannot destroy that. It is indestructible. Now, when we go through all these things, there is this last state of mind, that is Nirodha. And until and unless we reach that Nirodha, we will not be able to attain complete liberation. Even in the state of Samprajnata Samadhi, we have some duties towards the world. We have the karma vasana, the previous karmas are still active. But only when we go to Asamprajnata Samadhi, that's exactly what Chittavritti Nirodha means. When we say Chittavritti Nirodha, it means gaining that momentum or taking the Chitta towards that final state of mind, that is Nirodha. What happens in Nirodha is it loses all the connections with the outer world, as well as the karma that which provokes this cycle of life and death. They remain in the form of vasana or sanskara, and it destroys that samskara. That is why the famous quote that says that Vidyate Hridaya Granthi, Chidyante Sarva Samshayaha, let's forget about these two things. Kshiyante Chasya Karmani. That's what they said. All the karmas are burnt into ashes. They are finished. They are done. How is it possible? Tasmin Drishte Paravare. When it realizes what it truly is. All we have to do is we have to make sure that Chitta realizes that it is pure. That itself is Chitta Shuddhi. This is how Chittavritti works, because it has spread its wings. All we need to do is we have to remind our Chitta that, my dear fellow Chitta, your true Swarupa is, your true identity is Sattvamaya. And as soon as we do that, we enter into the third sutra, Tada Drashtu Swarupe Avasthanam. What happens is, Drashtu, whoever is seeing, or the mind that is perceiving itself as it is the one who is seeing, it becomes one with oneself. It loses that connection that I am the one who is seeing, and this is the item, that this is the object that I am seeing. So that drashtra drishya sanyoga, that becomes uparamaha, that becomes that ceases to exist. That itself is called as hanopaya. That itself is called as hanam by Adi Shankara, and this is called as kaivalyam. Maybe this is too much to grasp, too much to understand. Let me quote you a very beautiful yet simple Sri Krishna's verse from Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna has explained what yoga is. I said that the famous definitions of yoga found in Bhagavad Gita are yoga karma sukhaushalam, samatvam yoga uchyate. Let's forget about those two things. The most important and the most beautiful definition of yoga told in Bhagavad Gita by Krishna is tam vidyat dukkha sanyoga viyogam yoga samhitam. My dear Arjuna, this is yoga. What is yoga? Dukkha sanyoga viyogam yogam. This is the most beautiful definition that we will ever find. The entire talk, or the gist of the first three sutras, or we can call it as Yogatrisutri, the culmination of three Yoga Sutras, has been put in one single line by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. That's why Bhagavad Gita has its prominence. That's why it is one of the three major pillars of Indian philosophy. That's why it is one of Prasthanatrayas, because of its simplicity. It says that tam vidyat dukkha sanyoga viyogam yoga samnitam vidyat. How does any jiva or anybody, any soul, any person comes in contact with dukkha? Why does anybody get dukkha? Because of our previous karmas, may it be punya karma, papa karma, shubha karma, whatever it may be. Because of our previous karmas, we get into this world, we get so much of pleasure, pain, everything. All we need to do is, where is this dukkha getting attached to this mind? We just have to cut that cord. Dukkha sanyogasya viyoga. As soon as we achieve that, that is called as yoga. And that's why Krishna said to Arjuna that sanishchayena yoktavyaha yoga. You must dwell, you must practice this sort of yoga, anirvinna chetasa, without worrying about any other items, any other things, whether I will be successful or not, whether I should go and fight this war or not. That was Arjuna's mindset back then. So without worrying about any of these things, you please focus on yoga. And yoga says that you need to focus your mind from getting rid of all the karma, all the sanskaras. Once we get rid of those karmas, jnanagni sarva karmani bhasmasat kurute Arjuna. It's only through knowledge. Knowledge of what? Knowledge of oneself. When Chitta realizes its true identity, that is knowledge, isn't it? So that is what we are saying. Jnana devatu kaivalyam. So jnanagnihi, the fire of knowledge, it burns all the karmas. It ends everything. So this is how Chittavritti Nirodha has been put forth. And only through Chittavritti Nirodha, we will be able to unlock the true potential of Chitti Shakti. Look at the potential our mind has. It has been called as aparinamini. It has been called as endless. It is referred to as movementless. It is referred to as Shuddha. It is referred to as Ananta. That is the power of our mind. And all we need to do is we need to attain that last state of mind, Niruddha, where we lose all the karmas. Once we do that, we have attained what we are supposed to achieve. But this brings us to the conclusion part of the talk. Now, uh, the title said that decoding Chittavritti in Yogatrisutri. Now, the focus is on second sutra, where it has been explained what is Chitta, what are the Chittavrittis, and how to gain control over Chittavritti. So, Triguna, basically, we have understood that Chitta is made up of Trigunas, that is Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. Tadatmakam Chittam, Trigunatmakam Chittam, we can definitely say this. And there are 5 states of mind: Kshipta, Vikshipta, Mudha, Ekagra, and Niruddha. And as soon as we find this samadhi, this samadhana, this steadiness, which exists in all of these, but it exists predominantly in ekagra as well as in niruddha. What happens in ekagrata is it leads us only to samprajnata samadhi, where we will have absolutely true knowledge of the any object as it is. But what happens in asamprajnata is it loses the knowledge of the object as well, because when we know an object, we still have that identity crisis. We still have that connection where we say that I am the one who is knowing. This is the item, this is the object that is being known by me, and there is a connection between me and the object that is called as knowledge. And this needs to go away. And Vyasa calls this as Buddhi Bodhatma. Buddhi Bodhatma is one, the Buddhi itself realizes, because it was projecting everything to the mind, it now has realized that it is only Purusha that can know everything. Purusha is the knower of all knowledge or of all intellect. That is called as uh, Chittavritti Nirodha, or that is what he intends to say. That is what he intends when he said that Yogas Chittavritti Nirodha. To attain that state of mind, that is called as Asamprajnata Samadhi, because nothing is known there. There exists nothing to be known. The thing that needs to be known, the one who is knowing, they all become one. That is yoga for you. That is Asamprajnata Samadhi. Anyway, moving on, this alone cleanses the mind. As soon as we attain this state, unknowingly, unwantingly, all the kalmashas that are surrounding our mind, it goes away, it is washed away. Because it is the avidya krita karmas that is binding us. And once we attain that state, it all gets washed away. Now, Manasaha Nirvishayatvam. Now, how do we define Chitta Shuddhi? Last word, because the webinar is all about Chitta Shuddhi. How do we define Chitta Shuddhi, or what is Chitta Shuddhi? Shuddhi is purity, we all know that. But how do we achieve this purity of mind? By making mind nirvishaya. That is, not letting the mind to get itself connected, to get itself attached with the outer world. Instead, we can drag that mind. Yato yato nischarati. That's what Krishna said. There are plenty of questions that Arjuna asked Krishna in the course of Bhagavad Gita, but there are only a couple of questions that are outstanding. And one of them is Chanchalam hi manah Krishna. He said this. He spoke the truth, Arjuna, on behalf of all of us. Chanchalam hi manah Krishna. The mind is impossible to control. And yet, how am I supposed to control mind? Because all that you have told so far, it seems impossible to me until and unless I gain control over mind. Now, Krishna said, you are absolutely right. My dear friend, you are correct. So, abhyasena kaunteya vairagyena cha krishyate. You need detachment and you need practice, constant practice. And only through constant practice and detachment we will be able to gain control over mind. And how are we supposed to do that? We do not have to demonize the mind. We do not have to make mind a villain. We do not have to get that picture in our thinking. All we need to do is we have to work around mind, and because it has a tendency to get that attachment with all the objects that it focuses on, why not we begin with focusing on one particular thing? That is the first step that elevates us to ekagra, the state of ekagrata, and then we will forget all those things and we will reach the state of asamprajnata samadhi. That is the idea, and only by doing this we can attain chitta shuddhi. And also kaivalyam. Kaivalyam is knowledge. The knowledge is that drashtra drishya sanyogo parama. Beautiful words. Beautiful words. Drashtra drishya sanyogasya uparama. Uparama arthat cessation. It ceases to exist. Drashtra drishya sanyogaha. Tam vidya dukkha sanyoga viyogam yoga samyatam. The same thing has been said by Krishna as well. And but uh, the last thing, the last word in any talk would be, this is all fine. This is all beautiful to hear. So much of philosophy and all and everything. But we need to work, right? Tomorrow morning, when the clock hits 9, we need to go to office. We need to earn our livelihood. How am I supposed to not forget what the chitta, what mind is truly made of? Or how not to forget that mind has immense potential, that it can unlock and reach that samadhi, asamprajnata samadhi. That is a simple thing. There is a technique. The technique is, Adi Shankara said this in Viveka Chudamani, Chittasya Shuddhaye Karma. As simple as that. See, whatever action we do every single action, starting from breathing to all the big actions that we do, power-packed actions, all of it has to be done for Chittasya Shuddhaye, natu vastu upalabdhaye. You have to get this point. Once you get this point, everything is done. And what Krishna said in Gita is, Yoginah karma kurvanti. Even the yogis perform their activities. They do not restrain from performing their actions. But they do perform their actions. How? Sangam tyaktva atma shuddhaya. Sangam tyaktva, by giving up the fruits of those actions. Fine. Why? Why do they do that? Atma shuddhaya. Here Atma refers to Chitta. This is how Chitta Shuddhi is achieved. So in order to put it in very simple terms, or there is one more factor we can call Shuddhi as Prasannata. See, I gave an example, I gave a reference to Chikitsa Shastra or medical science when we were discussing about Chaturvyuha. There it is mentioned as Bhaishatyam and Arogyam. Arogyam is absence of disease, is one meaning of Arogyam. Arogata itself is Arogyam, and that is also called as Swasthyam in Ayurveda. And how do they define Swasthyam? Samadoshaha samatnishcha samadhatumalakriyaha prasannatmendriyamanaha swasthaityabhidhiyat. Prasannatmendriyamanaha. Let's just forget about the first line because it will take plenty of time to explain that. Let's just focus on Prasannatmendriyamanaha. Why has the Ayurveda authors used this word? Why have they used the word prasanna? Even Krishna uses this word. You will be surprised to know that Krishna uses the same word, and he makes this statement, Prasade sarvadukhanam hanirasya upajayate. See, we began with one more quest, that is dukkha. We are filled with misery, filled with pain. In this abundance of pain is there in our world, in our life. We need to get rid of that. How? Prasade sarvadukhanam hanirasya upajayate. Only through prasada. So what happens when the chitta becomes prasanna? Prasanna chetaso hyashu buddhi paryavatishthati. The intellect, it stops becoming something else. It stops objectifying itself. And as soon as intellect stops objectifying itself, since it cannot turn into any other objects, it will not project anything to Chitta. Since Chitta has no connection with the Vishaya, no connection with the outer world, it ceases to exist in the outer world. It realizes its true self. Its Chitta's true self is Sattvamaya, is Aparinamini, it's Ananta, it's Shuddha. There you go. You have achieved Chitta Shuddha, Chitta Shuddhi. And once we achieve that Chitta Shuddhi, Kaivalya is just a step ahead. Or that itself is Kaivalya. Hence, in order to move in this world, we need a perfect blend of bhakti, karma, and jnana. Jnana should be the ultimate goal, and in order to achieve that jnana, we must realize that all our karma should be targeted, should be focused on jnana alone. Sarvam karma chilam partha jnane parisamapyate. Krishna in Bhagavad Gita has said that all actions end in jnana. If your action is not ending in jnana, then you're not doing the action properly. So Daivi Shesha, why can't we do all these things properly? What is the problem? What is bothering us? Maya. As simple as that. The Vedantins, they call it as avidya, etc. And we call it as Maya. Let's just understand what Maya is. Krishna, in simpler words, he said that Daivi Hesha Gunamaya. It is Gunamaya, it is made out of Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. Mama Maya Duratyaya. Nobody can cross this Maya. That is the truth, Arjuna. Mamevaya prapadyante maya meshantarante. Now, this has plenty of interpretations. You can interpret it through karma yoga, you can interpret it through jnana yoga, you can also interpret it through bhakti yoga. That's why I said we need a perfect blend of bhakti, karma, and jnana in life. Only then we will be able to understand, because bhakti, jnana, and karma, they work in tandem with sattva, rajas, and tamas. And mind, if we focus on only one thing, it will turn against us. So, without demonizing mind anymore, I shall conclude my talk by saying that Chitta Shuddhi can be achieved in day-to-day practice by knowing what Chitta truly is. This is not the end of yoga philosophy. This is not the entirety, the totality of yoga philosophy cannot be said by anybody in one hour. It's impossible. But this is just, I have tried my level best to put forth what great thinkers were our sages, were our ancestors who have given this world yoga philosophy. Instead of projecting yoga as a means for only body health, fitness, etc., etc., let's just focus on mental health, not the mental health that the people are shouting these days, not that kind of mental health, but to understand the true potential of mind, to understand how we can achieve that samadhi, because that is the true purpose of human life. There is nothing else. Everything else is subordinate, everything else is secondary. There may be another purpose for life. I'm not arguing against it, but it is always secondary. The only purpose of human life is to get back where we came from, to find our original form, to realize what we truly are. We are being controlled by mind. Let us help our mind to realize that its true self is nothing but the great light or the knowledge. And once we achieve that, the impurity that surrounds our mind is cleared, and hence we would have achieved even Chitta Shuddhi, and through Chitta Shuddhi we would have achieved yoga. Through yoga we would have achieved our true motive. We would have realized what we truly are. Uh, I thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to present, and thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you is not enough word to thank you, sir. There are lots of compliments in the chat box, which I would like to share in the beginning. Miss Prasanna Lakshmi says, very enlightening session. Great explanation, sir. God bless you all. Very enlightening, very powerful session. Please, so, there are lots of compliments to your lecture today. I would like to mention that. And with your permission, sir, shall we take up few questions?
Sure, definitely.
Rashmi PG is asking, sir, can you explain again how buddhi takes the form of world? Example,
Oh, okay.
begins thought and presents it to mind. This is the first
Yes.
time I'm hearing such a concept and difficult to understand.
Yeah. See, it's a concept that has been interpreted variously in various philosophies. When we go to Nyaya, they explain it in a different way. Ghata Jnanavanaham. And they say that I have the knowledge, I possess the knowledge of Ghata or the pot. Now, when it comes to Sankhya, they say that Buddhi, it's only because the Purusha, he is static, he doesn't do anything. That's what most men are. So he doesn't do anything. Purusha is static always, but he is always Chaitanya. He is the one who provides the energy. He is the source of energy. And Buddhi basically is Jada. So in order to make Buddhi active, uh, the Purusha's energy is reflected upon Buddhi. And using that reflection, Buddhi tends to take the shape of all the objects. Now, when we see a pot, we can perceive it as I see a pot, I know a pot. It can be interpreted in another way, it can be perceived in another way, and that is that our intellect or our buddhi, it takes the shape of that pot. It's just a matter of perception, that's all. You will get to know more about it when you get deeper into Sankhya philosophy. They call it as Parinamavada. It is called as Parinama, because it all changes. The Buddha itself changes into that akriti, that shape. That's what they mean.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm combining a couple of questions here, but I think there was an answer in your previous explanation. So Chudamani is asking, sir, please explain what is Purusha. Is it Atma? What is the difference between Chitta and Purusha? And again, she is again asking, Chitta and Buddhi, are they same?
No, Chitta and Buddhi are entirely different things. And so are Chitta and Purusha. See, this is what we call as Sattva Purusha Khyana, Sattva Purusha Bheda Khyana, or Bheda Khyati. So what we actually mean to say is, see, that's why I said when we study yoga, Ekam Sankhyamcha Yogancha Yaf Pashyati Sapashyati. Sri Krishna for you. Sankhya Yoga Pruthak Balaha Pravadanti. The children, small children, useless fellows, they will argue that Sankhya and Yoga are two different schools of philosophies. Krishna's words, not mine. Pravadanti na panditaha, panditaha na pravadanti. Because they know, very clearly they know that Ekam Sankhyamcha Yogancha. Sankhya and Yoga are not two different things. Why? Because Ekam apyasthitasamya ubhayor vindate phalam. If you follow any one of them properly, you will reach the same destination. These are Krishna's words for you. So when we need to understand what is Purusha and what is Prakriti, the Antahkarana Chatushtaya, Mahat ityadi, we need to study, we need to go a bit deeper into Sankhya, because we need to understand the evolution theory, how this entire universe is made up. Uh, that's when we will get a clear picture of what is Purusha, why we call him as static, why we call him as Chetana, so and so, and how Chitta is different from that. There are two, the hierarchy works like this. Prakritim Purusham Cheti Vidyanadi Ubhavpi. Again, Sri Krishna for you from Bhagavad Gita. He says that Prakriti and Purusha are the two eternal things. And from Prakriti, this entire universe is made. Purusha, he remains static. So there is a huge difference between Purusha and Chitta, huge difference between Purusha and Buddhi. He is Chaitanya, Chaitanya in the sense that he is light. He is the eternal light, and that light reflects upon all these things. And just like when we see the reflection of moon in a pond, one who doesn't know the actual moon, one who has never seen the actual moon in the sky, if he sees the reflection of moon falling on the pond, he will think that this is moon and moon is moving, moon has waves, so on. So that's how Buddhi perceives all the things in the outer world. That's how we perceive everything in this outer world. That's why it is mithya. It's all false. We think that we know so many things, we know nothing. That's the end of it. So it's entirely different. The only knowledge is to realize that there is no second entity except one. There is no second entity except one. That is the only knowledge. That is the true knowledge. That is Advaita, in other words.
Yeah, thank you for that explanation also, sir. Manjula says, thanks very much, sir, for a wonderful session. I was able to understand the concepts clearly and easily, very structured lecture. Again, Prasanna Lakshmi says, very enlightening session, welcoming more sessions, she says. Can we take one last question?
Yes, sure.
So Niran is asking, could you explain the deeper contributions of asana and pranayama in Chitta Shuddhi?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. See, asanam and pranayama, because the mind is controlled by wind. That is the pranavayu. Mind is controlled by wind. That's why Krishna said in, I think, in 6th chapter in Bhagavad Gita, yato yato nishcharati. As our breathing varies, our mind also goes either sorry for that Hindi. It goes elsewhere. So it follows, the mind follows the wind. So it's a technique used that you, first of all, we need to achieve that sthirata, that stability. So once we achieve that stability, that is the purpose of asana. Sthira Sukham asana. This is not the definition given in Patanjali Yoga Sutra for asana. This is in fact the definition given in Sankhya Sutra. So Sthira Sukham asana is how Sankhya defines. This is why I said Sankhya and Yoga are not two different things. They are one. So it is said that one which gives us stability, that steadiness in the body, that is called as asana. That is very much required. That is a famous example that we can understand very easily. If we take a glass of water and if we keep on moving the glass, the water inside it will be always moving. It can never remain static. So the first thing that we need to do is we must stop moving. We must stop moving the glass. So we have to place it in one place. So that is asana. And once we do that, all of a sudden it becomes stable. That is pranayama. By pranayama, what we do is we not only increase ayama means dirghata. We not only increase the our breathing, but at the same time we will be working on mind. Unknowingly, we will be working on mind, and that's why that is the fourth step, and then comes pratyahara. Slowly we can retract from the outer world, and then comes dharana, and then dhyana, and then samadhi. So it's a stepwise thing.
Okay. Thank you for that also. N. Karthik says, Atyanta Ghada Vishaya Ati Sukshmatapi Saralat Vyakhyanam Kritavan Ananta Dhanyavadaha.
Dhanyosmi, dhanyosmi, anugrihitosmi.
Thank you so much, sir. We want more sessions from you. So one, Ms. Lata Saktivel, she's saying, sir, do you take Yoga Sutra group classes? Please let us know. Ms. Lata, you can contact Sattvam or Nirakula Yoga. There will be classes, group classes on Yoga Sutra, which you can enroll for. Bhavya is asking, does a short meditation without getting the mind still give really some results and affect Chitta?
That is not quite possible, to be very honest, because without yama and niyama, it is impossible. I know this concept looks very old school. It does not appeal to everyone because it is not very appeasing. Because to go through yama and niyama is very tedious, but there is no other shortcut. We have to go through yama and niyama. So anything that says or that proclaims that within 10 minutes, 40 minutes, 30 minutes, we will be able to do so and so, and that's. I'm not going to comment on all those things, but you know what kind of things they are. But it's a stepwise process, and it takes a lot of time. That much I can assure you. What Krishna himself says in Bhagavad Gita, Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaya. Yatatamopi siddhanam kaschin mam vetti tatvataha. So it's not an easy job. We are not even in the category of Manushyanam sahasreshu. We don't even know that we don't even know whether we have muksha or not. First of all, we have to establish mumuksha. We need to have that burning desire that I need to get liberated. like how we get hunger. We do not have that kind of hunger. Once we get that, we will start finding Guru. And once we find Guru, then we will walk in that path. And as the Guru points the path, then Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, they're all culminated into one. It's a lifelong process. It's not going to happen in 1 or 2 days or 15 days.
Yes, with that, I think we have come to the close of the session. I personally feel that you have given a spark and you've ignited that hunger in us to seek more from you and with the following speakers that we have in this series. Very, very humble, and I don't know what to say. Words are not enough to thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
So somebody has asked about the speaker's contact details. All those will be available at Sattva and Nirakula. You can contact Nirakula. You'll be provided the contact details. And tomorrow, day 6, please don't miss. Dr. Shripad is going to talk about Yama and Niyama for Chitta Shuddhi.
Oh, that's wonderful talk.
So with this, we conclude today's session. Hari Om.
Nirakula is a yogashala which firmly believes in promoting the ancient in the strictest sense and in them the essence of mantra, tantra, and